Next slide. Okay, right here. This is just north of Greenland. This is exactly where Admiral Byrd said he flew in. Right there. This was taken in 1979. Now you mean to tell me the Gemini, the Mercury astronauts, the Apollo astronauts when they came back, they missed this? I don't think so. I don't think so. If you can get your hands on the book, there's a color photograph. This is a photograph from the book. Folks, it's there. Whoops, there it is. It's there. Next slide, please. Okay, our moon. Our moon is quite the enigma. Apparently our moon was brought here 11,213 years ago, to be exact, in the month of March, that we know is the month of March. It came here as a base, okay, as a ship carrying ETs. They were coming here to colonize. They did in fact colonize. In fact, many of what's left of them are living underground in our planet from 100 miles to 200 miles beneath the surface. Now, I've gotten a lot of crap for talking about this, but I'm just not going to shut up. The beings that brought this satellite here to our planet in the last 25 years are responsible for over 31,000 children disappearing from the surface. And I don't know if you're paying attention, but over 100,000 children a year are vanishing from the face of the earth. And folks, they're being taken out of here. And the governments know. The world governments know. All right, and we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that. Next slide, please. Okay, did our astronauts really go there? I know that there's been a lot of talk that maybe they didn't go there because of anomalies and a lot of talk that maybe they didn't go there because of anomalies and pictures. Many of the pictures were faked because the pictures that the astronauts took, there was stuff all over the place. They couldn't hide it. Yes, they did go. But yes, there's been a manipulation of other things put in there that supposedly looks like our astronauts. So, we have to use common sense when we look at these things. The next slide, please. Did our astronauts see things? Absolutely. Mornay has told me that the United States government, just our government, has at least 53 of its own UFOs, flying saucers, that are stationed on the moon, on the far side. And I'm going to show you where he says they are. It's in one of the slides. They did, but they were told to shut up, not say anything. Many astronomers who have been taking a look at the moon, many of the lunar rovers and the cars that they drove have disappeared. They're no longer there. Well, they just didn't get up and float away. Okay, the moon has got gravity. Especially on the far side, it's got gravity. Mornay has told me that if you take Copernicus crater and you stood at the bottom, that the gravity is equal to that of Chicago. As if you were standing in Chicago. Because again, it is not the rotation. It is apparently the sunlight. The sun's radiation that creates gravity. At least this is what they say. Now, our moon does not turn on its axis. It rotates around the Earth, but we primarily just see one side, or only 59% of it. By the way, our moon's the only one that does that. It's the only one. Next slide, please. Okay, this was taken out of National Geographic. This was in the early 1950s. This was NASA's idea of what moon bases would look like. They, in fact, did do this and create this in February of 1958. So when Kennedy said, we are going to send man to the moon, part of our government, primarily the NSA, was already there. They were already there. Now, folks, you don't hear much about the Russian space program, but let me tell you something. They are a major player, and they are also here. And they don't work for us, neither does the NSA. They work for international bankers who are the new priesthoods for extraterrestrials. And we're going to cover that. Next slide, please. Okay. According to the Andromedans, there were primarily 9 huge dome cities on the moon, the front and the back. They housed up to 5 million extraterrestrials at one time. There was water, there was vegetation, there was everything they needed. Okay, and these covered hundreds of miles. So when Richard shows you the pictures of the things, the shards, so many miles tall, 9, 10, 15 miles, whatever it is, he's right. He's absolutely right. But there's more. There's more. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is along the equator on the far side of the moon. This is what's left of a pyramid. There are 4 pyramids on the moon. Excuse me. Okay, now I can assure you that the pharaohs, just to practice, did not take the Hebrew or the ivory up here, build one, then bring it back and do it right in Egypt. Didn't happen. According to the Andromedans, almost all the planets in our solar system have pyramids on it. Some have more. I've asked why. Some people say they're tombs. The Andromedan perspective is that these are weights. And what they do is you put them in a strategic location, it balances the rotation of the planet. It doesn't keep it from wobbling, which means that if the ETs are there colonizing, there's no major fluctuations in weather and gravity. Gravity anomalies as well as the electromagnetic field, which is around every single planet. It has to be balanced. That's what these are for. That's why Giza is directly dead center of the landmass on planet Earth. Next slide, please. Okay, can we just focus this a little tiny bit? Okay, folks, I want you to focus on this area right here. I want you to focus on this structure in here. For those of you who are architects, please feel free to, say something about this. This area right here, you can see the curves, the angles. There's another bridge here. I want you to notice these lit up objects inside the bottom of the crater. We've got a close-up of it. Next slide, please. Here we go. Okay, here's another bridge. Apparently this is inhabited by extraterrestrials from Orion. These are, I'm told, are domes. Does everybody see this? Okay. I'm also told that this is a road that goes into here. There's an elevator that goes up to this area here. And when they land, they take an elevator or something down, and then they can walk, because there's atmosphere on the far side of the moon. Which is why the astronauts took pictures of clouds. It's unbelievable. The snow job that we've been given. It's nothing what we've been told it is. Nothing. Right. Next slide, please. Okay, I want you to focus on this. Let me just turn off one. I want you to focus on this area right here. Now, I realize this might be difficult, but I do have a close-up. This is a crater, and there is a structure that comes across it. You can see the sun coming through this way. You can see it shining right here underneath, and you can see this is still in the shade. This structure here. This is a 21-mile long bridge. Next slide, please. Here. I'm always updating. I'm always trying to get clearer pictures. This is 21 miles. Now, you may not see it. You may have to adjust your eyes. I know this isn't easy, but this is it right here. Okay? You can see the sun shining through here. Now, we didn't build this. And how is it that our astronauts missed this? 21 miles. That's from here to almost to Boulder. Next slide. Okay. Look at this. Just sitting there parked. This was taken by the Lunar Orbiter in 1966. Next slide. Now, isn't it interesting that we're told that the craters were created by meteorite impact, or incessant meteorite bombardment? I just love that. Okay? And yet, you have full-fledged mountains in the dead center of these craters. Many of them are even higher than the crater walls. Folks, that's just not possible. It is not possible. You have craters that are 30 to 40 miles in diameter. The deepest one is only 7,000 feet. That is also an absolute impossibility. Richard talks about his dome structures, okay, that had some kind of a glass on it. Right here. I believe, and I'm told that this is what's left of one of Richard's domes, that he has a picture of them, with the long shards and the pieces hanging off. This is what's left of it. As you can see, there's a shiny spot of the glass tickered in, but that's what this is right here. This apparently also was a domed city, but it was destroyed by particle beam weapons between what we now know as the Orion group and a group from the Pleiades. This happened approximately 9,600 years ago. Full-out war here. Next slide, please. Okay. I want you to just check out this area here. All these structures, look at these. Apparently these are hangars. This is a complex that is inhabited by human beings from Earth. Also want you to look at this object. I'm trying to get a better picture of what this large structure is. But what's really interesting about this area here and this is look at nice how sharp this crater is. The corners here. Very nice and sharp. Here. Very nice and sharp. Next slide. I just wanted to show you this structure here. This is absolutely not supposed to be there, and apparently it is the ruins of a ship that was destroyed 9,600 years ago. Next slide. Piece of shard. It's 2 miles. 2 miles tall. Piece of what? Shard. Piece of metal. Next slide, please. Okay. On this photograph, I want you to just take in the landscape. Okay? I want you to take in the landscape of what you see here. Now, I want you to focus in on this area right here. I want you to look at this area here, and I want you to compare it to the rest of the landscape. Just focus your eyes for a minute. Okay? I want you to focus on this area, and then the rest of the landscape. What's unusual about this area right here? Anything else? Maybe the way these things are all lined up together, nice and neat, and then these structures right back here. Next slide. Okay, here's another picture of it. Okay.
Is that a monument there, that dark shadow?
This here? No, that's an arrow. That's my arrow. Okay. This area here, I have been told by the Sayus and Mornay both, is a base that was built by the United States, the Russians, and the British with the help of bankers, using technology that was given to this elite, this ruling family, by the Greys in 1954. They've been up here a long time, and this is actually considered a resort. This is not Club Med. Next slide. More ruins down here. Here and in here. These are not supposed to be here. These are pieces of spacecraft, apparently, that were destroyed 9,600 years ago in a war that took place in our solar system. Next slide, please. Okay. this is the same structures I showed you earlier. Here's some more ruins. Now I want you to look at this area right here. This apparently is what's left of a dome, one of the dome structures. And these pieces that you have on the inside are pieces of the roof that just fell to the floor of the dome. You can look, you can see it, you can see there's a circumference. Here's part of the wall that's fallen down this way, okay, and here is part of the dome that is still intact. If we go to the next slide, you might see a little better. But we'll have to focus it. Right here. No, maybe not. Okay, this was also destroyed in that war 9,600 years ago. Next slide, please. If you can see this, this is very light. This is a piece of a bridge that crossed this crater where half of it's gone and half of it is just still standing there. I don't know exactly how many miles across this is. But again, how did our astronauts miss this? Next slide, please. Okay, these are more ruins. I myself have even had trouble seeing some of the things in this, but they've been very strong about this particular area, so I felt it was important to include it and just share it with you because maybe somebody in here will see something more than what I see. You know, people often do. So I'm just trying to share it. These structures here, it's a weird place. Again, this is along the equator on the far side of the moon.
A lot of those craters have a rising piece in the middle.
Yes, sir, they do. Yes, sir, they do. And, you know, some of them are full-fledged mountains, and they're just not supposed to be there. Next slide, please. Okay, now, look at this. Is that the best we can post it? Okay, thanks. This area here apparently is a domed complex inside this crater, and I'm told that the world government picked this area because there's water underneath it. These are domes. These are a series of domes that are lit up from the inside.
Is that first thing the pyramid?
Which thing? This? This here? I don't know exactly what that is. It's not discernible in the pictures. You know, I think sometimes they purposely blur these just a little bit. Next slide, please. Here's another area in another crater. This is all lit up from the inside. Next slide. The structure here. This piece, this thing here, this length of object, whatever it is 13 miles. And it's just sticking up out of the crater. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, I want you to look at this area right here. Everybody see this area? Is that a yes? Okay. How many of you have been to the Sears Tower in Chicago? You ever been to the top? It's about a mile high, right? That's what they say. It's about a mile high. Next slide. Here it is again. Now, I want you to know these photographs were taken from... This particular photograph was taken by a little orbiter at 86,000 feet. Okay? According to Morine, this is 7 miles high. And it's a monument to one of the old ETs. Next slide. Here's a close-up of it. Your suspicions are pretty accurate. Back up just one more time. Okay. Now let's look. Now just look at the rest of the terrain here. Okay. Look at the rest of the terrain and just look at how this sticks out. 7 miles. How come our astronauts missed it? I mean, I hate to be redundant, but I'm just hoping somebody will have the answer. Next slide. Oh, we did that. Okay. One more time. Okay. This particular area, I'm told, is now being reactivated. They say, Mornay and Passaic have said that all of this are ruins and that there are underground facilities all through this area. And I just wanted to share it with you because they're very strong about this particular area. And this is a dome that is apparently that was still left intact. Next slide. Square craters. Now I've asked Mornay specifically, and he said there's no such thing as a square meteor. So it's just one of them weird things. Next slide, please. Okay, craft sitting here, hanging over a crater. Next slide. These are all taken by the lunar orbiter. Weird crossed objects sitting in the middle of craters, dead center. Next slide. This was the photographer. Let's go one more slide. Okay, back up. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody else, I think George Leonard wrote this, somebody else is on the moon.
George Leonard, yeah.
George Leonard. Somebody else is absolutely living on the moon. I am told that there are 35,000 full-time human beings from Earth living on the moon. And they are Aryans by birth. Now, let me just say that one more time. They are Aryans. Now, let me just say that one more time. They are Aryans by birth. They are Aryans by birth. You're going to have to research them because if I come right out and say it, I'll get in deep trouble. Okay, Aryans by birth.
They're not.
They're also there with extraterrestrials. Between the moon and our Earth, there are 18,000 grays here. There are only apparently 2,000 real grays left. All the rest are clones. They're robots. They're organic robots. And microprocessors are grown in their head. And they are controlled by some kind of a radio frequency. Now, the Greys and the Orions also have this technology to absolutely replicate and duplicate a human being. And for those of you who are familiar with the old Dr. Beater stuff, before he was killed in a parking lot in Dallas, I would suggest you go back and re-research that information. Except he was told the Russians were doing it, and they're not doing it. It's extraterrestrials who are doing it, who are trying to undermine the free will of those of us on the surface of the planet. Because this is our home. Okay, Mars. I'm still working on more information, but I'm going to show you a couple things and share things that I've been told about Mars. The first thing I want to share with you about Mars is that, again, everything we've been told about it is wrong. Mars' atmosphere is full of oxygen and ozone. In fact, the local San Diego paper on March 23rd of 1995 flat out said that in 1971 they had discovered it was full of ozone. Well, folks, you go to the library and you pull out any book that you can find on Mars written by any scientist on this planet, and they don't say virtually anything about ozone. But it's there. We're told that that its actual gravity is about 1%. Well, if the atmosphere is so feeble, then how is it that it can have 300-mile-an-hour wind storms? If the atmosphere is so feeble, how is it that it can hold water at both poles? Next slide. Let's go next slide. I'm sorry. At both poles. And there's water at both poles. This is water, H2O. We're told that the Martian atmosphere never gets above 129 degrees below zero. And yet, this past February or March, you had a picture from the Hubble telescope of Mars and the North Polar Cap melting. Now, I'm not a scientist, but tell me, how does water melt at 129 degrees below zero? I'm open. I'm open. Okay, apparently Mars has been inhabited off and on as a base, as a small colony, as a staging point for extraterrestrials who are exploring and leaving our galaxy to go to another for 3.8 billion years. The ruins that Richard shows and other people, they're tombs. This is what I'm told, that they're tombs. And that there's far more there than is being shown. Most of it's been buried. Because during a war previous 69 million years ago, Mars was almost exactly like Earth. In fact, Mornay has said that many of the animal life that was on Mars is on Earth. That when we get there, when we as a race get there, publicly get there, we will find that there were dinosaurs. Many of the exact same animals and mammals and reptiles were on both our worlds. And that Mars had a totally different orbit. It was literally pulled from its orbit, and as it was pulled from its orbit by 19 million miles, it rolled like a ball 3 times. And the water that was here just moved everything. And that it's been reactivated. It was reactivated in 1989. Now, I did a lecture in Dallas, and I've been talking about this information for several years now. And I was told that in 1989, Orion troops landed on Mars and took over colonies that were settled, created there by Terrans, us, by human beings from Earth. They came in and just took it over. Now, this gentleman who approached me, and I'm just sharing this with you, said that his best friend's brother worked for Central Intelligence and was a director of NASA and resigned in 1991. He said that his brother told him that the meetings on Malta, on the ship, just off the coast of Malta between Gorbachev and Bush, were about what was going on Mars and that they were scared to death. Now, folks, I got to share this with you. The beings that are here from Orion, they're into control. They're into control. There is no such thing as self-rule in the Orion Empire. There is a hierarchy. Now, if you look at our planet, if you really look at what's going on our planet right now, there's only one nation that truly cherishes self-rule and actually has real experience in self-rule. That's the U.S. And we're armed to the hilt because our Constitution says we can be. This is why the focus is on destroying the United States of America. Okay, the UN, the World Order, all of that stuff, they're all taking orders from ETs, and they're scared to death. But they're willing to sacrifice this nation. They're willing to kill 3.5 to 4 billion people to maintain their place as the new priesthoods. This is Sumeria, this is Egypt all over again, but on a much grander scale, because now you've got 6 billion people living here. If the people of this nation surrender the Bill of Rights by 1998, folks, you will no longer have the United States of America. That's a guarantee. That's a guarantee. This is the reason the Andromedans are coming back, because 317 years into our future, our galaxy is in tyranny. And they have traced, through time travel, all the events that lead to the single point that shifted the energy from free to tyranny. Now, we're not just talking about free, we're talking about also on a spiritual level. Suppression, oppression of soul, of spirit. And they have traced it all back to our solar system, which is why many races are coming back and they're saying, hey, wait, this isn't going to work. Because 317 years in our future, there's tyranny here. There is no such thing as freedom. And we somehow are dead square in the middle of this thing. Sorry for the news. But we are. This is the only reason they're bothering. Next slide. Save your questions, please. Write them down, okay? You all know about the face, or most of you, I'm sure, do. There is a lot more in this area that needs to be explored. Those of you who are researchers, please get pictures of not the face, but go north, where the mountains are. Okay? There are ruins everywhere. There are domes collapsed on top of themselves. In fact, there's one that's still there that looks like Texas Stadium in Dallas with the opening in the middle. It's there. It's there. Next slide. I just put this in because everybody's interested in the physics. I'm not a physics person. But it is important because it all matches up. You know, there are symbols in all of this. In fact, I want to share with you about crop circles. I've asked a lot of questions about crop circles, and I'm told that there are two groups leaving crop circles. There's the Andromedan Council, which is made up of 139 different races, which is putting encoded information into the Earth to help stabilize it from Earth calamities. They're trying to buy us time. And many of the other crop circles that are being left by Orion. Now, where are they coming from? They're coming from Hale-Bopp. Hale-Bopp. Hale-Bopp is not a comet. Which are ships are going to move out of the tail and move into an orbit around Mercury. And this is in February, March of 97, and they're going to tell us they're here for sure. That'll be the latest. The highest probabilities is that by the end of November of this year, after Spielberg's movie about Roswell is released, they're going to start telling you that they're coming, that they picked up signals. And the truth is, they picked up signals back in 1960. You know, and in fact, they were already on the moon in 1960 with extraterrestrial help. So, I mean, the whole thing is a conspiracy within a conspiracy within a conspiracy, and it is all to keep us fat, dumb, and stupid. Not to spook the herd, as a friend of mine said. Because they fear us. They fear us. Because if we stand together and we ask for benevolent help, folks, it's going to be there. In fact, I've been told that the Andromedan Council has already decided to directly intervene, but I don't know what that is. I can tell you this, that the Pleiadians are at full-fledged war with the Greys outside our solar system. They're dying on both sides. This is going on, and the Hubble telescope sees it, and there are two Hubble telescopes, not one. The Russians sent one up. But you're not being told about that. Next slide, please. Olympus Mons, 15 miles high. 1979, NASA admitted that they saw water vapor and ice clouds going over it. That's 90,000 feet. Okay, that's higher than the clouds on our planet. Now we're told that the circumference of Mars is 4,200 feet. The Andromedans say, wrong. They say it's 11,230 miles. It's 3 times the size we're being told it is. The Andromedans also say that if you look at the planets in your solar system and you look at the brightness of those planets, that is proof that we live in a binary star system. They say we have 2 suns. But because of the rotation and the position of our planet, we never see the sister. But if you're on Venus, Mercury, or the others, you would see it. They rotate around each other. I realize it flies in the face of everything. I'm just here sharing with you, and I'm just asking you to keep an open mind. Next slide, please. Okay. Cydonia is in the northern hemisphere. Now I'm told that at one time most of that area was covered with water. And that along the equator of Mars is where most of the colonial cities were, colonies, outposts. They said much of the bigger cities on Mars, before it was destroyed, was in the southern hemisphere. Now I want you to, honey, can we focus just a shade? I want you to focus on this area right in here. Now this area is known as our Great Plantatia. This is in the southern hemisphere. Now, there's a little happy face.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty amazing. Okay, but if we go to the next slide. This apparently is another tomb that was in fact destroyed. And these are 3 more pyramids that are lined up just like Giza. This area right here. And that these are also ruins. This is what they say. And folks, they've never lied to me. Right here. They want us desperately to wake up. Now they have their own selfish reasons. Okay, because of the fact of the problems that apparently come up in the future. But there's also another reason. Many of the human races in our galaxy, because of so much interbreeding between the one race, the genetics apparently are starting to break down. There's only one race in our galaxy that can give these particular human races a genetic boost. And that's us. But they can't use our genetics. They can't even approach us because of the vibration we all move at, which is fear and anger. They say when we're not taking advantage of others, we're taking advantage of ourselves.
That's correct.
Well, it hasn't stopped the regressives because they vibrate at this frequency, and they've also helped to propagate many of the belief systems that we have right now. We have real problems because this is all coming to a head by the year 2000. They're going to be here in 97, and official protocol ships from Orion are going to be here. Now, I want to share with you some of the things that the Greys are up to. Many people say they've left. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but apparently they're still here, and they have no intentions of leaving because they need us. They are desperately trying to save their race by using our genetics, but it isn't working. They can create the form, but they can't put soul in the body. That's a gift. Now, here's what they're doing. This is what I'm told they're doing. I'm told that many of the abductions that are occurring now, that the vital body, the aura of the people being abducted, which is primarily the females in a family, and it's usually the first and second daughter and the mother, what they're doing is they are peeling off the vital body, the closest part to the energy field, and they are storing it and they are feeding it to the hybrids that have that mother's genetics in it. And apparently they're doing this to keep them alive. And they're also apparently trying to create soul. They think by stealing your aura, the vital body, in your energy field, and giving it to another, that it will create soul. You need to be aware of this. Okay, this is why a lot of folks who are weird things are happening, they're getting real sick and run down, is because your vital life force is being stripped from you. And folks, there is a violation of free will, big time going on here. You know, there are a lot of lines in metaphysics, and one of them says that you create your own reality. Well, that's true, but there is a violation of free will, and we are being violated big time. And our race has been for the last 5,400 years. Big time. I'm dealing with the race we know ourselves now as Homo sapiens sapien. I don't know, is there another slide? Phobos. Phobos is an artificial moon. This is where the majority of the 2,000 real graves that are left are hiding out, is on Phobos. And when you look at pictures of Phobos, when you go through your magazines or you go through the astronomy magazines, I'm told that you should, I've been asked to share with you the idea that you should look very carefully about the inside of craters. That many of the openings that lead into this are inside the craters, that the bottoms open up and the ships come in and the ships come out. Okay? Now, Phobos is a major anomaly because it goes counterclockwise to everything else in our solar system. It rotates counterclockwise to everything else. Let's see, there's one more. Okay, this is the North Pole of Jupiter. This is a photograph taken by the Voyager. I'm sorry, the Galileo. Anybody care to tell me what that might be? I don't know either. Yes, that's the North Pole. When it went over, it photographed this sitting there. It could be. It could be. I'm just sharing it with you because I want you to think about it.
I have an idea. I think it's a satellite. Alien satellite that they caught on top. That satellite's analyzing the surface.
That's a very good answer.
I know it is.